Hello and welcome to another episode of the 209 podcast. I'm your host, Angelina Martin. We're recording from home this week, but that doesn't stop the 209 podcast. We'll bring you the show from anywhere. And this week we have an amazing guest on the show. Her name is Ash Reuter. She's a Turlock native, and she just so happens to have appeared on the current season of American Idol. And while Ash is no longer on the show, her audition captured the hearts of millions across the nation. We are so excited to talk to her about what it was like being on one of the biggest television shows in the world. Special thanks to our sponsor, the City of Turlock Municipal Services. Now let's hop into the conversation. All right, and we are here with Ash Reuter. Ash, thank you so much for joining us on the 209 podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm super excited.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Ash is a Turlock native, born and raised, and she recently appeared on the most recent season of American Idol. For someone like myself who grew up watching American Idol, and even, I'm fans of so many people that have been on that show, so cool to see someone from Turlock make it on TV, and specifically someone from Turlock and the 209 make it onto the show. So I'm sure everyone is super curious about you, and some may have even seen you on the show. So I was wondering if you could start by just talking about when you began singing, because you have a beautiful voice, and it was amazing to hear you sing.
Yeah, so I honestly started singing as soon as I could talk, or even before I could, even form sentences. I think that for me was the first way to communicate, because I mimicked the shows that I watched, and I grew up around a lot of musical theater performances, like Sound of Music and Les Miserables, and all of these different musicals that kind of came out in like the 80s. And it was just something that everyone in my family had on CDs, and it was just right there and ready and available for me. And I remember just kind of mimicking that and having this fascination with it. So for me, that's really where it all started, was just singing on a fire mantle or on a truck bed, just performing. And that's kind of where music started for me. And then I started to write songs in little journals, and it kind of just like catapulted me into this like lifelong thing of just always being involved in music in some form or another. So yeah, that's really how it all got started for me.
Yeah, and I know a lot of little girls and little boys could
Yeah.
probably just love to sing and love to put on little performances for their family and whatnot. But American Idol is probably one of the biggest stages, if not in the country, in the world. So
Yeah.
when did you start like performing in front of people, and were you prepared for, going on a nationwide TV show?
So how it all kind of got started for me is my husband is an actor and a director, so he has access to the acting casting calls online. And he started to see postings for American Idol contestants on there where you could just like very easily submit videos and all of these things in just to one little link, and you can easily do it. Where prior to COVID, you actually had to go in person. There were like 40,000 people, and I've done that too. I actually tried out for The Voice when I was 14 years old. They're very drastically different experiences that I've had. So with American Idol, we submitted me and sent in links to my Instagram where I had a lot of videos, and then also to my YouTube. And then we didn't hear back from them for probably about a month. So in my mind, I'm thinking it's fine. Like I just kind of got looked over, and like I just kind of sent it in, let it go, and like surrendered it. I'm like, okay, if anything happens, it'll come back. If not, then that's totally fine. But then a month later, and I've shared this with people and it's really funny, but about a month later, I was camping out in Yellowstone with my family, and there was absolutely zero cell phone service. And right as we were driving into cell service, I got a phone call from the casting director saying, "Hey, we want you on the show, or we want to hear more from you." So that's kind of where it all started. And there's a lot of preliminary rounds that you have to go through before you even get on the show. So that journey in and of itself is a lot of work and a lot of preparation that you never see and that never really gets acknowledged. So that's kind of how it all got started. And then eventually I made it through those rounds, and that was really fun. A lot of really great preparation just to kind of mentally get ready for the show. And then I got to sing in front of the judges, and it was a really, really crazy cool experience because these people are people who are like the most successful in their genre, in their industry. So to sing in front of them, and let alone to sing an original song for them, was such an honor. And I'm so grateful that beyond them even being able to use that stage to share a story that's so near and dear to my family's heart, and to celebrate who my dad is now, as a part of that has been the greatest gift and the best part of being on the show. So, um, yeah, it's crazy. It's a big honor, and some days you don't even realize until it just, like, hits you like, "Wow, I had the opportunity to, like, sing on this," like you said, show that is the biggest show, the most watched show on ABC network. So that was a crazy cool experience, one that I'll never forget. So, yeah.
Right. And it wasn't your first experience with reality TV. You auditioned for The Voice, you said, when you were
Mhm.
14 years old. How were the two shows different? Because I don't think a lot of people are able to compare between the two and have auditioned for both.
Yeah, so I definitely think that the biggest differences were that when I tried out for The Voice, it was not, during COVID, so the regulations obviously were not there. With American Idol, that whole process was just so different because of all of the remote things that we were having to do, and I think being, on a screen and having even auditions actually gave you, like, a really great advantage because for some people who are typically, like, really shell-shocked or nervous in front of people in person, that experience wasn't there, those nerves were alleviated because you kind of are in your own space, you're at home performing for them. So that was a lot different than when, I was 14 in front of all these people, surrounded, and there's thousands of people that you're surrounded by, and it's just exhausting. So I would really say that the biggest difference was that American Idol has all been COVID during COVID. As far as other differences, I would say that The Voice is obviously newer, but and judges are different on that show. So they have very similar, goals as far as like, showing off your voice, showcasing that. Um, but I was also a lot younger during The Voice. So the way that I perceived the show and the way that I like handled it emotionally is a lot different than how I could handle American Idol at 22 years old. Um, so yeah, I would say that those are definitely the like key differences that I've experienced for the shows.
Yeah. Now, almost a decade later, did you have were you scared to audition for American Idol after being turned down by The Voice?
Mm. I think that was kind of my initial fear was like, I'm not sure that I want to go on a show like this again just because of the experience and just like how exhausting it was. Because there was probably like 3 or 4 thousand people at a conference center in Los Angeles for the voice audition when I was 14. And I think that that experience as a whole was just a lot different emotionally. And I think when you're young too, you're really looking for that acceptance from people. And to be rejected that young, I think I took it very hard. Because you're still developing, you're still trying to figure out who you are as an artist, and while I do think that you're always kind of figuring that out as you grow up, and no matter how old you are, no matter how successful you are, that is, like, the road of artistry in general is you're always, like, changing, redirecting, all these things, but when you're 13, the advice of other people or the critique from other people is a lot harder. So I think initially I was a little hesitant to audition for the show again or for a voice competition again, just because of that bitter taste that I had in my mouth from the first time. But I also think that during, the pandemic, there hasn't been a whole lot going on. There's not a big music scene. You can't go out and play gigs anywhere. It was the only opportunity I had as a musician. And I think that when you're given that opportunity, and like you said, it's such a big platform, why would you not want to go and, experience that? That for me is kind of what I was like, like I've got to do it. Like there's nothing else going on. I've figured out who I am as an artist a whole lot more. I'm confident enough in myself to be okay walking away from this if I get rejected because, there's other opportunities down the road. So I went into it, I feel like this time with a lot more confidence and less fear of what other people thought of me. And yeah, I wanted to share my story and who I was and what my music was for me. And I think American Idol was the perfect way to do that. And I loved it. I really loved the experience. So I'm grateful that I chose to suck it up and go and do the show. So yeah.
So you made it 2 auditions. You were in front of Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, and why can't I think of the third? Lionel
Lionel
Richie.
Richie.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I swear I
The
watched every
legend.
episode. Yeah. So you make it to the audition. I wrote a story for the Turlock Journal right before you went on. What was the support
Yes.
from the 209 like and from the community while
Oh my
you were
gosh.
waiting for the show to air with your episode?
Yeah, it was as expected. I love where I grew up. Everybody here is the reason why I am the way I am today because people are so kind and so loving and so supportive. There was no doubt in my mind that everyone would come to back me up when it came to, you know, going on the show. And I think people, it's a small town, so people love when they get to like cheer someone on who is like a mascot for them, so to speak, or like going out to like represent who we are as a town, as Turlock specifically. But yeah, people were having watch parties. They were sharing the news as much as they could and spreading the word as much as they could. And I'm in Turlock right now, actually, celebrating the Easter weekend with my family and just being able to, get away from the crazy city life. And even just being here within the last few days, like that love and support is still there. And people come up to me and say, "Oh, I watched your audition and I love your story." And it's honestly provided a way to have people open up to me on a whole other level. Um, they're willing to share their stories with me and encourage me and talk to me. And they feel safe around me, which I think is really um, an honor, and I'm flattered that people feel that they can share their heart with me. Um, and so yeah, that's been the greatest gift that this town has given me is just that support and the love. So we love the 209.
And of course, you had the 209 supporting you, you had Turlock supporting you. Your
Yes.
audition for American Idol caught the hearts of the country. There's no other way to describe it. I think it racked up
Mm,
over 1 million views on the internet. And,
yeah.
I saw people that don't even know who you are and that you're from here sharing it just because they were moved by the song you sang and your relationship with your dad. So I was wondering if you could just talk about that self-written song that you sang in your audition, and then what it meant to you and why you wrote it, and how special it
Yeah.
was to sing it in front of your dad and in front of the American Idol judges.
Yeah. So I started writing the song probably 2 or 3 years ago, just out of curiosity. I've always had this love for my dad my dad struggled with addiction all throughout my life. For those who don't know my story, haven't watched American Idol yet or seen what I've shared on there, but my dad struggled with addiction all throughout my life. And while he was always at home, my parents always stayed married. That definitely put a heaviness on our home. And I, as a little girl, never could grasp what was going on. But the older I got, and I think the older you get, the more aware of your parents you become, and you start to become curious and you see why they are the way they are through their, childhood and what happened in their childhood, what they've experienced as an adult. And I think for me, this like growing curiosity was just like stirring inside of me. I really wanted to know who my dad was, and I wanted to have compassion for him. And by doing that, it required me knowing like why he was the way he was. So I started writing this song, as I do in most situations, to like cope through something or work through something. And the song really started out just talking about like his childhood and kind of like walking through that. And something that's really cool about that is my grandparents still live in the same house that my dad grew up in. So every year for Christmas, and I talk about this in the song when you listen to it, every year for Christmas, we would go to my grandparents' house and they would tell these stories about him as a kid. So, like, he was always kind of a daredevil child. He would burn the hill. He accidentally burnt the hill down across the street from their house. He would tell his sister there was scratch and sniff at the bottom of the pool, or that bees didn't sting, all these different things. And I just had this like, I was just so curious about all of that. So I wrote all of this in the song, and then I didn't know how to end the song. And so I kind of just like let it sit on a shelf for a long time, because I can't force myself to finish a song if there's not anything organically happening for me to write it that way. So I waited for I just left it sitting for a while, and then my dad, 2 years after I'd started writing the song, decided to totally turn his life around and become sober, and he since then has been an amazing man, an amazing husband, a great father, and a good friend. And I knew that I'm like, that's the ending of the song. It's coming full circle. I'm so proud of him and all that he's gone through, to get to this point. So I finished the song, but still withheld from sharing it to him, because I like to be grandiose that way, where I'm like, I want it to be like this big gesture, because I'm a performer. I'm a big bold person. So I was trying to figure out a really cool way to share the song with him, and nothing had presented itself yet. And then the show comes around and they want me to sing on the show, and I have to pick a song. And I told them about this one and performed it for them. And they're like, "Could you sing that on the show?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I haven't showed it to my dad yet, so he doesn't know about it. So the only way he would know is if he like watches the show." So they're like, "Well, could you bring him?" Um, it just like slowly was progressing. I'm like, "I know what you're doing." Like, yeah,
They
I can.
knew they
Yeah.
knew it would be a TV gold moment.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful it was. But so that was kind of how it all came to be, and my dad still did not know, even up until the day that we were going to the filming location, that it was just going to be him going with me. We put up this huge like front of my whole family's going to go. We're all going to be there to support me, and we're all staying in a hotel together. And then on the day of what before we started driving to set, I was like, "Okay, dad, like actually it's just you coming with me." So that was like a big surprise. And then we get there. It actually was his 50th birthday on the day of the performance, and he's waiting outside while I go into the room, in front of the judges, and they asked me to bring him in. So that really shocked him, and it's funny watching him back, because he's like, "Why do I get to come in here?" But and then I sang it for him, and it was very emotional, and I do not know how held it together. I really don't. I think it was like part nerves, part just like just what is it called? Adrenaline, like all
Yeah.
of those things all coming together all at once, to, make it happen. And it was so special. And yeah, it's literally like an experience I will never ever forget. And my dad won't either. He watches it back, I'm sure, every day. And the song will be available on all streaming services on April 23rd. So I'm
No
super
way.
excited to, yeah, put it out and share it with everybody. Because it's been a really great response. Everyone has been so sweet about the song. So I'm super excited to get it out for everyone to hear.
That's
So
so exciting. We
yeah.
obviously saw your dad's reaction on TV, or for those who haven't watched it, they can go back and see it. But did he say anything to you when you weren't in front of the judges? Like, what was his genuine, thoughts about the song? And I'm sure it meant a lot to him.
Yeah, he was just I think his word that he would use is he was overwhelmed, but in a good way. Because I think that some people can be so overwhelmed in a negative way. Oh my gosh, my pool is like bubbling. That's hilarious.
It's okay. You have a bubbling pool.
Sorry.
I have dogs barking. It's
What
fine.
the heck? Okay. It's hilarious. Hopefully you can't hear it.
No, I can't.
That's good. Um, so I would say that my dad's biggest way that he would explain how he's been feeling through the whole process is just like overwhelmed with gratitude and love. He, I think, has put on himself for so long this like idea of shame and guilt. And while there are obviously actions in his past that make him feel that way, we've all in our family looked at him as a strong man, and we love him and we're so proud of him. And so I think that this song for him was that like final straw of showing him, look, dad, like we are so proud of you. And I think he really, for the first time, felt that forgiveness and love, and that weight of shame is like gone. And I think that that's what he shared with me the most is like, it's so cool to know that my daughter forgives me and that everyone in our family does. But I think that he has a weight lifted off of him, and our relationship has. Katy Perry said it, but we witnessed a moment of healing going on in that room. And for my dad and I, the best way that he and I have ever communicated is through music. That's what's like held our relationship together for so long when it barely could stand. So I think that that was the best way to get through to my dad. And ever since, he's been so proud, and he walks around with a different air, I would say. Like you could just tell that there's a weight lifted off of his shoulders and a gift that's been given to him that I think he's always wanted, but couldn't ask for because he didn't feel like he ever deserved it. So yeah, I think he's so cute. He probably watches the video back every single day and cries, and it's adorable and so sweet. So yeah, he's a very, very proud father, and man in general for
That's
the
amazing. And can we just
story.
talk about the
Yeah.
fact that you were just able to casually name drop Katy Perry? Like, yeah, Katy Perry, you said. That's so cool. We
I
saw
know, it's so weird.
yeah, we saw the outpouring of support for you and your dad on social media. And I remember before the episode aired and I spoke to you, I think you had like a couple thousand or a few thousand Instagram followers. Now you have over 20,000. I see the
Yeah.
comments that people leave on your pictures saying how your song helped them and all
Mhm.
these different special things. Like you said, people just, pouring their heart out to you. So what's that been like
Yeah.
to have complete strangers like telling you that you
Yeah.
impacted their life?
Yeah. It has been so surreal. And yeah, I started out, I think I calculated it. So I think, I want to say 2,000 followers the night of my audition. And then when it aired, like the number was just like not stopping. So that was really crazy. But for me, it's never really been about, oh my gosh, like I need to have this many Instagram followers. But I think what that has shown for me and what that has felt like for me is like, wow, I have all of these people who love and support me. And that has been such a blessing. And the response has been, yeah, amazing. Like I said, there have been so many people who have opened up to me about their stories and shared with me that either I've convicted them to go and, you know, forgive or start working on a relationship that's been abandoned in their life. Or someone even told me, wow, after watching that, I'm going to start going to AA meetings. And like, it's just insane how sharing, like being honest and upfront and sharing your story with people really can be such an amazing thing to do. Um, and it goes to show too that there are so many people who have brokenness in their life and they never share about it until they know someone else has gone through that too. So I think for me, the biggest thing that I've like been able to take away from all of this is honesty and sharing about what hurts and sharing about joy and redemption and healing and love. That goes so far. And I think that the world needs so much more of that. And I know it's so hard to do because it took me 20 years to get to that point. But the way that the world can heal is by, sorry, by being honest and sharing your story, because you can impact so many people by the experiences that you go through. So it's been a big blessing that putting myself out there like that has been so rewarding. So yeah.
And all of that support and love that you received was just from one episode. And
Yeah.
I know everyone was so excited to see you during Hollywood Week. And I caught a glimpse of you
Yeah.
in the stands at one point. Like, I think you were
Uh-huh.
like shocked at something the judges said
Uh-huh.
because they were switching things up. And then
Yep.
we didn't see you again. And I know a lot of people were wondering, where is Ash? We
Yeah.
loved her audition. And I know you shared with your Instagram followers what happened, but
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah. So I made it through quite a few more rounds that were never aired in Hollywood Week. And I think a lot of that just has to simply do with the fact that you do not ever see, as a viewer, you never see how many people are actually there. So while they show you 30 to 40 people um, during Hollywood Week, there were actually 165 people there. So while I'm sitting where where you had mentioned you saw me sitting out in the audience, there's about 165 of us sitting out there together, and
Wow.
they have to pick and choose very carefully who they air on TV, because they have to make sure that they are establishing a emotional connection to those people, because those are the people who obviously are now in the top 20, so that people have this relationship to want to vote for them. There's this passion, and if they get kicked off, oh no. So they have to be very strategic and figure that out. And I went home after the duet round.
Oh my gosh, that
um
late. That's so crazy
yeah,
because I watched
I
the
know.
genre round, I watched the duet round, I was waiting to see.
Yeah.
And it's interesting
Yes.
that you mentioned that because I think if they would have shown you even, one song after the auditions, I know people already were mad that you're not on it anymore, but I think
Yes.
people would have been like livid. But anyway,
Yeah.
so you made it to the duet round.
Yes. So I made it through the genre round. And then I got to do the duet round. And then the duet round is when I went home. Um, and yeah, they didn't air it, but that's totally it's fine with me. I am so grateful that I even got aired on the first round, because so many people, and also the people who are in Hollywood, some of them didn't get introduced in the first week. Like they got introduced in Hollywood,
Right.
even though they had auditions in um, their regional auditions, whether that was Ohio or LA or wherever it was for the first show, the first episode. So I'm just grateful that they, picked me to go on, because while there were 165 in Hollywood Week, there's about 1,200 in those first auditions. So I, out of 1,200 people, got selected to be shown um, in the first round. So I'm just really honored that they, wanted to share my story in the first place. And it's been a really great experience, even though, I'm not on the show anymore. I've already, I couldn't ask for a better experience and better opportunities that I'm, a part of now. So, um, yeah, but it's been cool to see, the response. People have been so curious, like, why weren't you on the show? And I know that that's difficult, and I wasn't given answers on why I wasn't either. I can only assume. So I don't have any definitive answers about why I wasn't selected to be aired on those episodes. But to see the support and the army behind me has been such a cool thing that I'm so grateful to have even. So yeah, it's been fun. I'm really grateful for all of the people who are so supportive.
Yeah, I'm curious, in the genre round, did you do country?
So it was kind of a country pop song. It's in the country genre, but it's not. It doesn't sound country. So
Yeah,
actually,
kind
I'll
of like
say
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, kind of. It was called Bad Advice by Ingrid Andress.
Yeah.
And I played it on the piano, and it was a really fun round. And
Oh,
the reason I chose that song was because Luke Bryan had said in the first round that, he wanted to see more dynamics in my voice. And in that specific song, there was a lot more range. I sang a lot higher at some points. There was more dynamics in the song. And that got me through to the next round. So yeah, it was a really cool process. And my duet partner is a really good friend of mine now. So we had a really great time. Um, yeah, it was fun. I didn't
yeah.
have any, bad experience with it. So
I saw during Hollywood Week that the judges would like go to where people were rehearsing and talk
mhm.
with them, give them advice. What were your experiences with the judges? I mean, these are the A-list of A-list celebrities.
Yeah.
What were they like? How did they treat you? How did you walk away from it, like looking at them?
Yeah. They were very good at like understanding where we were at. I think we all musicians start by, putting themselves out there. And so they really understood where we were at. We're vulnerable. We're trying our best to do what we can do. But at the end of the day, we're still waiting to hear back from them if we're good enough, so to speak, to make it through to the next round. So, and they've all been in that position. So they're really good at advising us. And I met with my duet partner, we met with Luke Bryan, and he told us both, like, you guys both have rock star status. It's just a matter of like picking the right song and really like showing all that you have in this next round to make it through. And we both did that, and there was no I did the song was solid, it was good, we did great. It was just a matter of, what they had lined up already. And then, there's so many contestants, so they have to kind of pick through each genre. And, so yeah, they're really sweet. I love them, and I have a whole new respect for all of them because of how they displayed so much compassion. And they're real. At the end of the day, they're real people, and that was a really cool thing because it's so easy to hype up or, dream up this like big personality behind these stars when really they're just real people, and they're musicians, and they share their hearts just as much as we do, and they fear failure and rejection just as much as we do. So to have their counsel through the process was a great thing. And I've walked away with an even greater respect for them, as musicians, as artists, as performers. So I'm glad I got to meet them. And honestly, they're the best trio of judges that I have ever seen on the show. So, and I might be biased because they're, on my season.
Yeah, I was about to
But
say I'm a little biased. I still think it's Randy, Simon, and Paula, but
yeah, no,
they-
I know. I grew up watching
these three
them,
are
but
pretty good too. I'll give them that.
yes, I'm just really glad that Simon wasn't on my season. I would have been terrified.
Yeah, I feel like
Terrified.
Katie has kind of taken on his role of like the
Oh,
assertive,
totally.
like
Yeah.
mother hen type, you know.
Mhm.
So, you know, in retrospect and talking with you, it's apparent that it was a blessing that your audition was aired, you know, given
Yeah.
what happened throughout the rest of the show. We talked about, you know, your social media following now, and I know you don't care about followers, but like for an artist, followers are important because that's
Yeah.
exposure for you. So what's next on your plate? I'm sure you have had some
Yeah.
opportunities come your way, and I know your song that you sang in your audition, Brian's song, is going to be available for people to listen to soon on all platforms. But what's in the works for you right now?
Yeah. So I just want to first say, thank you to all the people who have been so supportive and who have been following me. And while the number doesn't matter, the people who are behind those numbers do. I'm so grateful to each and every person who is in that 20.9 thousand followers that I have right now. I see all of you. I read all of your comments, and I'm so grateful. And I wouldn't be here right now without you as people who have hearts and are so supportive. But yeah, what's next for me? I've been writing a lot of music. I've had the freedom and the time to just, really find my sound and write all of these stories and wear my heart on my sleeve. And so recently I was out in Nashville and I'm recording an EP. And like I said, my song that I sang on American Idol will be out on Friday, April 23rd. Super excited about that. It will be on all streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, you name it, you'll find it there. And I have a lot of other things coming up in the works that I can't announce yet, but I'm so excited to share more. And you can find all of that on my Facebook, my Instagram, my YouTube, all of these places that I have my media, which is just Ash Rooter. It'll all be on there. I'm so excited. Again, Brian's song will be out. I'm hoping to get an EP out pretty soon. And yeah, just a lot of projects in the work, and I'm super excited. And yeah, again, I wouldn't be able to do any of this if I didn't have all of the love and support that I've gotten from Turlock, from the 209, and just from all the people who have watched American Idol. And I'm so grateful for you too for hosting this and, you know, being here with me through the process and being curious and sharing about it and helping spread the word. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Well, myself and like we said, all of the 209, we're so excited to see what you do next. And
Yeah,
we can't wait to see what you put out and listen to your new music, because you're super talented, and it's
thank
always so
you.
cool to see someone from the 209 kind of, you know, not make it out, but you know, go do something really cool. And that's exactly what you're
Yeah,
doing. So we thank you so much for
yeah.
coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
If you want to listen to more episodes of the 209 podcast, head over to 209magazine.com, Spotify, iTunes, or any other podcast platform.